Today's mission is to give you the fertilizing schedule that you need to get your garden going, to keep it producing, to keep it healthy throughout the summer. So this is my fertilizing schedule, and I'm going to tell you everything that I fertilize for this time of year and the way and the time frames that I do it. If you're not into fertilizing, then this isn't the video for you. So don't leave any nasty comments about how bad fertilizer may or may not be, because I use it and a lot of other people do. But let's get into it. Just to get it right off the bat, every single bed in my garden gets fertilized, and they all stick to a general method of fertilizing and time frame. There are some beds, such as this corn bed, that need special fertilizer, as these sweet potatoes will need special fertilizer, and these potatoes will. But for the most part, they will all across the board all get about the same fertilizer on the same schedule. The timing of your planting is going to change that a lot. And so for instance, we'll start with these 4 beds up here because they're kind of timed a little bit weird. But we just planted these sweet potatoes the other day. These were planted last week, and these were planted up here yesterday. So when we plant every single thing in our garden, first thing we do is we put in an organic, granular, well-balanced fertilizer in there. What does well-balanced mean? It means the 3 numbers are generally the same: 10, 10, 10, 8, 4, 6, something like that. They're very similar, and that gives you a well-balanced fertilizer. The first number is the nitrogen, so I usually try to put a little bit heavier nitrogen in on that basic fertilizer, because nitrogen is water soluble, so it will leach out of your garden. So we do try to add that back in. So when we dig our furrows, we put our plants in, we will put in a healthy amount of that organic fertilizer, and you can look at that as a slower release fertilizer. It doesn't feed it all at once. Now we do come back, put in a liquid fertilizer that basically feeds right away. So if you don't use a liquid fertilizer, then you can skip it. You could amend your schedule. You could start using it, whatever you want to do, but this is how I do it, so keep that in mind. Once the plants get about 3 weeks old, then we'll hit them with a liquid fertilizer, and that will get them up and going and really give them a push. And you can almost see it within a couple days. You'll see extra growth come on. So these beds right here are due for a push of fertilizer. But the corn is a little bit different. We need a higher nitrogen. So I also come in, and I just sprinkled in the other day, I sprinkled in some some of that urea, which is just nothing but nitrogen, just to kind of keep it going, push it so I can get some bigger growth on it. And it was about a week ago, and we can see how it is starting to grow faster now. So we will continue that process as well. But a lot of people think when you use fertilizer, you're constantly pumping stuff into your garden. That's just really not the case. What we're doing is we're supplementing. So the organic fertilizer will feed the soil mainly, and then the liquid fertilizer will feed the plants. And so that's how we kind of go about this. So on the 3rd week, generally speaking, we will give it a liquid fertilizer. This is very specific to my garden because these 4 beds are on a drip system that's all connected. And these beds are all on a drip system that are connected, separate. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna feed this today, and then we're gonna cut the water off here and not give this any food today. But then in 3 weeks, we'll come back and we'll do the whole thing again, and we'll fertilize it. So you wanna keep that in mind and just give it that liquid fertilizer at your discretion and just space it out. Now, at the same time, what we do, to think organic fertilizer is good for about 6 weeks roughly. So 3 weeks after that, what we'll do is there's a couple things that are going to happen all at once, and we'll focus on these beds right here, these 2 tomato and pepper beds and this corn bed. So within the next 3 weeks, what we're going to do is we'll come back, and this would be about 6 weeks after planting. We'll come back and we'll put another dose of organic fertilizer on top of the soil. And then what we'll do is we're going to mulch the soil on top of that. So what we want to do is we want to get that organic fertilizer in good contact with the soil so it can break down. And then we're going to mulch all of these beds. The reason why we're not mulching it is because it's just not quite hot enough yet to really need the mulch. And we want to have the garden exposed, keep that soil warm as we get some cooler nights. Look, I'm in coastal North Carolina, and right now, or today, it's going to be 90 degrees, but then we're going to drop back down into like the low 80s. We may even get some 55-degree nights, something like that. So this will just keep that soil a little bit warmer. But as the summer heats up, we're going to add that mulch. So we want to put a good dose of fertilizer underneath that mulch. At the same time, what we're going to do is, so the corn is a very, very heavy feeder. So we're going to come back in and we are really going to put some more nitrogen on top, because then you start running out of time to really add nitrogen. We want to get these plants as big as possible. And then what we'll do is, at the same time, we're going to come in, and this will be like our last big dose, and we'll do the liquid fertilizer all at the same time. So you've got to remember that organic fertilizer that we're going to put down is also not going to feed those plants right away. It's still going to take time. So that fertilizer that we put in the injection system, or you water in by hand, however you do it, is going to feed right away and give it that little bit of an extra boost. And that's what we want. Now, here's an extra thing that I do that is another insurance policy. I hate paying for car insurance. I hate paying for homeowners insurance. I hate insurance, but for the garden, I love it. So what we do at the same time, before we put the mulch in, we'll put the alfalfa pellets. You can get them, it's horse feed. It's just alfalfa in pellet form. We'll put all of that on top underneath that mulch as well. And then as it gets wet, it'll break down, and then it will add nitrogen back into the soil slowly over the coming months, and just give it a little bit of an insurance policy for it. So that's how we handle all that. Now, what we need to do is we need to look at specifics for certain garden beds and at the time they're producing. So the reason why these beds will all get that fertilizer, that big dose at once, is because you can see our tomatoes are getting big. They're putting on flowers now, and we are starting to get some tomatoes. So that means that they're producing, which means they're using up a lot of energy right now and a lot of nutrition. And we also have our peppers here that are in full growing mode. They're putting on flowers as well. So we really want to put that nutrition to them to get them to boost a little bit more and have that energy to be able to dig down and get from the soil. At the same time, this is going to be growing and getting up to where it's going to start tasseling, hopefully. So we want to be able to get that, because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of water for corn to do so. At the same time, we're probably going to do the same thing for our sweet potatoes, but what we're also going to add to our sweet potatoes, because it's a root crop, is we're going to add bone meal right on top of the surface, and then I'll just scratch it in, and that will help with the sweet potato forming and stuff like that. So it sounds like I do a lot, but it's really like three. I use the well-balanced fertilizer, the alfalfa sprouts or pellets, the liquid fertilizer, and then bone meal is about all I use. And then I'll use a little bit of urea here and there. But then that will set these up to grow for the rest of the season, where we won't be putting any more organic fertilizer in there at all. The only thing we'll be adding from henceforth will be the liquid fertilizer. So now we come over here to our squash beds, plural, and they are in their peak right now. So they are producing. They're not really going to do much more. So we are going to give these guys another dose. Actually, we'll give these beds, this bed, and that bed over there, that tomato bed, they will all get liquid fertilizer within the next week to really push them through the growth pattern. Our carrot bed is wrapping up. It does not need any more fertilizer. It just basically has what it has. And then this bed back here, which is newly planted, and it's kind of hit or miss. We are starting to get a couple true leaves. So if I time it out right, I can go ahead and throw this bed in the mix as far as the fertilization goes as well. So we're going to work on all of that, but you really want to get these plants up and running. So that's what that dose will do. And then these plants up here that are really in the prime production, that'll keep those going. But as these die back and fall away, because you know, squash don't last forever, we will cut back on the fertilizer for it. So at this point, we're roughly 6 to 8 weeks in from planting, and we've done our fertilization, we've got the mulch down, we've got our organic in, we've done all of our liquid. Now once you put the mulch in, it's really hard to get that organic fertilizer underneath the mulch again unless you get in there and really work it. So it can't get in contact with the soil, which means it won't break down as easily, which means it won't do its job as easily. So what we want to do at this point is focus on our liquid fertilizer. So what we'll do is probably about a month after that. We're looking into the middle of July at this point, and everything is going to start going a little bit into, you know, hibernation mode, I guess you could call it, from the heat. We will probably start losing our tomatoes right around the middle of July. They'll kind of finish up for our first set. We'll have our second round planted by then, but our peppers should still be going strong. So we need to keep feeding those as well. And so we can put in the liquid fertilizer in there. If we have done any kind of planting, then that resets for these two beds that schedule. One thing to keep in mind is, let's say you're going through summer and you really want to plant a fall garden, and you got to get your timing right for fall gardens, like really right. But what we want to do is we want to put a almost like a pre-harvest fertilizer down. So what that looks like is we will take the fertilizer and we'll put it in a month, 6 weeks before we plan to put in the next one, so that soil will get nice and charged. And then we can add another pre-planting fertilizer in and start that cycle over. So we want to push it really hard at first, and then as it starts producing, you give it more fertilizer, and then you can kind of let it step back a little bit, let it use up what's in the soil, water it really deeply, because, you know, the one thing about the organic fertilizer is it's really hard to over fertilize. So as you water more, some of that fertilizer will leach out. It helps it to break down faster and then go from there. So as far as liquid fertilizers go, you can use synthetic, you can use organic. It doesn't really matter. I know it does matter to some people, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter. It's all treated about the same. So just think about it that way. And many light doses are better than like a heavy dose, because a heavy dose can kind of do some damage, but many light doses will just kind of keep pushing and pushing and pushing until you get that growth that you're looking for. So it can be a little bit confusing, and it's definitely a daunting task at times until you get your hands on it. Now the same thing's going to go here. We're going to be mulching this bed. Once these bush beans in the front come up, which they are starting to come up, once they get a decent size, we're going to do the same thing. So this bed was planted a week ago, and we will come back in. We're holding off because we have fresh seeds in and putting the liquid fertilizer in. But once that starts to come up, we'll do the big dose. We'll liquid fertilize it, we'll put the granular fertilizer on top, and then we'll mulch it, and then we'll let it grow. This pertains to your summer gardens. Winter, fall, spring, cool season crops are a little bit different, and I'll bring that to you when it's time. But this is the general schedule that I use for my garden. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you about. These potatoes are finishing up. They don't need any fertilizer. There's no point in me putting anything else back into this garden bed. So we're just gonna let it run. We're gonna let it run its course. We've got about a week, maybe two, before we harvest our potatoes. So just finish it out and then we'll be done with it. So just keep all of that in mind. You don't wanna put fertilizer in if you don't need it, but you also need to be timing out your fertilizer appropriately as your plants are producing. And some of them, like the corn, which are heavily producing. So the goal here is to get these plants up and running and producing as much as possible. And that's where that extra nutrition is gonna come in. So I hope this helps you guys. I hope everybody can get on a decent schedule and really enjoy watching the growth in their garden. It makes a big difference. And as you get later into the seasons and you go to switch over to another season, another crop, this is when this really kicks in. So you may look at it and say, oh, well, everything is about the same. But as you go back and you start adding that organic granular fertilizer in and feeding that soil, adding your compost in the beginning of the year, I did forget to mention that, which is, in my opinion, is a very, very good amendment, but is not a fertilizer. But all that stuff will add up and then it'll get it going. So hope you can use this schedule. If you're doing anything differently, let us know in the comments.